I love it when video game stories are unpredictable. A great plot twist can keep something interesting. But what about when it's just unsettling? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, the top 10 most unsettling plot twists in video games. Just a little warning for you, this is a plot twist list, so there's gonna be a lot of spoilers. Starting off with number 10, it is Dead Space. The Dead Space series is filled with plot twists, and they're usually pretty gruesome or shocking, so I wouldn't normally describe them as unsettling, but the big twist at the end of the first game, though, is pretty creepy in a way that gets under your skin. In Dead Space, you play as engineer Isaac Clarke, an everyman dude who's set into this mining ship called the Ishimura to help a team with repairs, but it doesn't take long to figure out that the ship is infested with these disgusting monsters called necromorphs, which are transformed humans who were infected by a mysterious alien signal. The main reason Isaac is there is because he wants to rescue his girlfriend, Nicole, who sent him a video before everything went crazy on the Ishimura. Isaac does eventually find her, and together they make a shuttle to the planet's surface and return this alien thing called the Marker to its pedestal, and that's where the twist happened. The Nicole that Isaac was seeing wasn't real. It was just a hallucination created by the Marker to get Isaac to do what it wanted, basically. The video you see at the start of the game was incomplete. Only after the reveal do you find out that Nicole actually killed herself at the end of the message, so in a way, Isaac either knew in the back of his mind she was already dead but chose to believe the visions anyway, or he was already being influenced by the Marker before he even got there. Either way, it's a creepy thing that shows you that you can't trust what you're literally seeing in the video game. At number 9 is Superhot, which most people remember for its stylish visuals and memorable trailer, but it actually tells a pretty unsettling story on top of all that. It's kind of meta. In the story of the game, you're playing a video game called Superhot. Like you, the player, is playing the game, but so is the character that you're playing in the game. Get what we're getting at here? Anyway, the game starts with your friend sending you a leaked copy of a new game called, Superhot.exe. Things just get weirder and weirder as you keep playing though, like you get messages threatening you to stop playing, or the game shows images of where you live, not like where you live, but the character in the game. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. Anyway, you keep playing until you get to the final level where you seem to join with the system core, and the game ends with you shooting yourself, meaning that you have been completely assimilated by the game. The end tells you to spread interest in the game through social media and Steam reviews, basically saying you're not being forced to spread this game around and affect more people. It's kind of silly, but it's also kind of unsettling in a creepypasta kind of way. It's all about presentation on this one, and the stark visuals combined with the sparse narrative actually make this strange meta story work really well. At number 8 is Nier, a game where the twist ending on its own is just more tragic rather than upsetting. But when you read some of the background information and think about what's actually happened a little bit more, it makes the whole thing a lot more unpleasant. Nier is a game all about subverting expectation. It starts by revealing a pretty standard RPG plot about stopping an evil force called the Shadow Lord, but slowly becomes something much weirder and much more difficult to define. For this one, I'm only talking about the twists for endings A and B. I'm not even going to bother with C, D, and E here. So very basically, at the end of the game, you find out the people living in the strange dark fantasy world aren't actually people, they're replicant, basically bodies without souls, and the creatures you've been killing throughout the whole game, called Shades, are human souls separated from their body. We don't really have time to explain why this happened, but it did, so the Shades are pretty much the actual human. Your main character, Nier, never actually realizes this. At the end of the game, he kills the Shadow Lord, which is the Shade version of himself, and reunites with his sister. It's a bittersweet ending because the Shadow Lord was also just trying to save his sister, but at least you achieved your goal, right? The problem is, if you read some of the text files you get at the end, they make it clear the Shadow Lord was basically the key to the whole thing. If he managed to recombine with his replicant, then humanity would be restored to normal, and people's souls would go back into their body. But you killed the Shadow Lord at the end, which means you basically just doomed humanity. And this is basically what's been proven to happen in the sequel, Nier Automata, which shows that humanity has been dead for a very long time in that game. There's just something really unsettling about you killing humanity's last chance for survival and not even realizing it. And number 7 is Bloodborne, a game that gets more and more unsettling as you go through it. Like, for a game that's not actually based on Cthulhu mythos, this game maybe captures that feeling over overwhelming cosmic horror better than most other games out there, including a very large number of games actually based on the Cthulhu mythos. And you can even beat up a lot of those cosmic space monsters. It's still really unsettling, and that's pretty damn impressive. Around the halfway point in the game, the things just go nuts. The story starts out simple enough. You're a hunter in this creepy gothic city called Yarnum, so go hunt werewolves and stuff. Things don't venture too far off from werewolves and vampires until you get the old school deep in the forest outside the city, where things get crazy. There's gigantic alien centipede creatures there, and you jump into the reflection of a lake and battle a bizarre spider creature on the surface of the water in some strange realm. Then when you kill it, the moon starts going crazy, and you wake up and the world is completely changed. Like everything's bathed in this otherworldly light. Gigantic, bizarre monsters can be seen crawling all over the towers of the city, and the unsettling thing about them is that they were always there, you just didn't have the insight to see them. This is basically where the game goes full Cthulhu. Your character has seen beyond the veil of reality and seen the horrors that lurk there. The Great Ones, as they're called, are beings so impossibly alien we can't even fathom their motivations, and just being aware of them can drive people into madness. When it comes to big reveals, Bloodborne actually has one of the best. It's both bizarre and shocking, as well as deeply unsettling. At number 6 is Spec Ops: The Line. Let's switch from something bombastic and mythic in scale to something a little bit smaller. Spec Ops: The Line isn't telling like a grand story outside of having a bit of meta commentary about war games in general. It's just a relatively small story about a guy. The guy keeps doing worse and worse stuff for the greater good, and then has the rug pulled out from him at the end. You play as Walker, who's on a mission to find Colonel Conrad in the ruined city of Dubai. Things get complicated almost immediately after you get into a firefight with Conrad's soldiers, and from there it just gets worse and worse and worse. For the entire game, Walker justifies all the horrible stuff he does so that he can find Conrad and stop him. Of course, this wouldn't be an unsettling twist if everything was as it seems, and Conrad's actually been dead the whole time. All the times you think Conrad's doing something evil was a hallucination, and it's basically your fault all the things went as badly as they did. There's a few endings you can pick after this. Walker can kill himself, which, while dark, isn't as bad as the one where he doesn't, but is instead found by a proper rescue team who's there to help, but Walker is so far gone that he fires on him. It's about as grim as it gets, and it's an unsettling view into the horrors of war. And number 5 is Silent Hill: Shattered Memories, another very personal but very creepy twist. Thankfully, it doesn't require a lot of explanation, which also sets it alone as a Silent Hill. So basically, Silent Hill: Shattered Memories is a remake of the original one. You play as Harry Mason, a father who's looking for his lost daughter in the haunted town of Silent Hill. As he searches for her, he relives memories of her, and all the while you play out scenes with a psychiatrist who analyzes your actions and choices in the game. It ends with a pretty wild twist, though, that the Harry Mason you've been playing through the entire game does not exist. He's a figment of his daughter's imagination and actually died in the car crash at the beginning of the game. It pretty much means that nothing you did in the game was actually real, and depending on how you played him, you find out that the real Harry was either a drunk or abusive, but all around a bad dad. It's both a tragic ending and an unsettling one. Imagine if your life was just a figment of another person's memory, or more realistically, what if our memories of someone are wrong and don't reflect who they really were? What happens to people if they've forgotten? The game asks a lot of pretty deep questions, and many of them are very creepy when you get down to it. At number 4 is Killer 7, which is just a wild game as it is. There are so many crazy left turns and bizarre twists that happen in the story. It's almost hard to even pin down what is supposed to be a twist itself. The basic premise of the game is actually kind of hard to wrap your head around. You play as the Smith Syndicate, 7 assassins who are the split personalities of Harmon Smith, and you battle these weird invisible monsters called the Heaven Smile. The main plot has you battling a villain called Kun Lan, the guy who's been creating the Heaven Smiles, but in reality, most of the game you were just doing totally unrelated stuff. If you can wrap your head around that, that's where the unsettling twist happens. At the end of the game, you go to the Hotel Union to learn the truth about Harmon, and as you explore the hotel, you start reliving your past memories, which each slowly and methodically show each one of your Killer 7 being murdered by an unknown assailant. In one of the most bizarre scenes in a game filled with bizarre scenes, you see Harmon playing chess with Kun Lan like they're old friends, only for them to be riddled with bullets. On top of the hotel, the truth is revealed that Garcian, not Harmon, is the real protagonist, and his briefcase actually contains all the weapons of the other Killer 7. What makes this so unsettling is how it reframes the entire story and knocks everything off balance. All the main protagonists are killed in a very detached and indifferent way, and even the main villain dies suddenly without fanfare. It calls into question literally everything you know about the story, and it's just really creepy how it's depicted. At number 3 is Little Nightmares 2. This is probably the most recent game on the list and has one of the more unsettling endings in a while. While the first Little Nightmares ended on a maybe hopeful note with Six escaping the maw, this game ends much darker and much creepier. In the sequel, you play as Mono, a little boy who's trying to escape the little horrors that hunt him in this strange world. The most dangerous creature hunting you is the Thin Man, a guy who came out of the TV and is just creepy as hell. At the end of the game, you get to the broadcast tower and it's a strange and twisted place that seems to be the source of the TV signal. You manage to rescue Six, who's been turned into a monster herself for some reason, and the place starts to fall apart. This is where things start to get unsettling, basically. Six abandons you to save herself, so you fall into this dark pit made of flesh. You wander around until you find a chair, and you sit there and suddenly time seems to start speeding up. You get older and older until it becomes clear that you are the Thin Man, the one that has been hunting you. It's creepy enough on its own, and the metaphor you can probably figure out yourself. Most games shy away from having bad things happen to kids, but this game takes things into an even more uncomfortable place by having the kid transform into the creepy monster at the end. Like, maybe it'd be better if it just killed you, but then again, that would start a time loop of some kind. I don't know. And number 2 is Soma, a modern classic that takes a pretty basic sci-fi premise and turns it into one of the most thought-provoking horrors in any game. Premise is straightforward. A guy going in for an experimental brain scan finds himself in a nightmare scenario dodging bizarre robotic creatures in an underwater base. There is so much that is unsettling about this game, from the totally amoral motives of the machines to the post-end of the world scenario that so much of the plot revolves around, but for this example, I'm just going to talk about the big twist at the end. See, a big part of the premise of the game has to do with continuity. That is, your consciousness being transferred from one state to another. In this case, it's like your brain to a computer and so on and so forth. Trying to get into the philosophical implications here would take all day, but that's the biggest question of the game. Can you upload your brain to a computer? At the end of the game, you manage to launch the satellite into orbit and upload your mind into, well, the computer, so that you can escape from the failing underwater base you're trapped in. Only problem is, you don't. While quote-unquote you are walking around the digital paradise you uploaded your mind into, you are also trapped underwater. You didn't transfer your mind, you copied it. So yeah, there is a you in the computer in space, but there's also a you that gets left behind. It's a cosmic coin flip where you actually get to be. It's kind of a creepy concept that makes you wonder who you actually are. The whole situation the game takes place in is creepy enough on its own, but the big questions it asks are what makes it particularly unsettling. And finally, at number 1, it's Silent Hill 2. This had to be number 1, right? Probably the granddaddy of all video game twists. The events of the game became templates for a dozen copycats to come, but few did it even close to as well as Silent Hill 2 did. Premise is simple. You play as James Sunderland, who returns to the town of Silent Hill after getting a letter from his dead wife saying to meet her there. When you arrive, the town is blanketed in fog, bizarre monsters are roaming the streets, and an unstoppable monster called the Pyramid Head is hunting. At this point, most people are probably aware of the big twist. James murdered his wife, Mary, and has repressed the memory of it. The letter wasn't written after she died, it was written before, and we don't get to see all of it until the end. What makes it so unsettling is not just because the guy you play as is actually a murderer, but because of how relatable and complicated the actual murder was. The game deals with real-life issues like infidelity, resentment, and disappointment, along with more specific issues like dealing with a debilitating illness. The ending to Silent Hill 2 is so well known at this point for a very good reason. It's not just a shocking twist, but it's also incredibly sad and deeply unsettling, especially if you're someone who has been in a similar position. We also have a quick bonus for you, Cookie Clicker, the Grandma Apocalypse. Yep, just one more for the road. Cookie Clicker starts off about as wholesome as it gets, but by the time you're buying the One Mind upgrade and getting the message that the grandmas are restless, don't encourage them, then you know that stuff has gotten weird. Very, very weird. This one's less of a spoiler and more of a characterization. That is all for today, though. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, that's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe, and don't forget to enable all notifications. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero. We'll see you next time, right here on Game Ranks.